What's the worst thing that could happen when you're home alone? Today, I'm sharing 4 true stories that will make you think twice before staying home by yourself. These are real experiences from real people, and trust me, you'll want to lock your doors after hearing these. Let's get into it. I remember this night like it was yesterday, even though I'm 26 now, and it happened when I was 12. My parents left me home with my 18-year-old brother, Zach, for the night. And at first, I was excited because it was just me in the big house, which felt like huge freedom at the time. Zach told me he was going out for a few hours with friends and made me promise not to tell mom and dad, which I agreed to because I trusted him, and also why wouldn't I want the place to myself? He would get in huge trouble if my parents were to find out, and he knew that. At first, I thought it would be fun to be alone, especially on a weekend night. I ended up in the den where I decided to watch a scary movie at that age while home alone. Not the best idea. Halfway through, I started getting scared, not because of the movie itself, but because of the way the house sounded. The random creaks in the floor, the wind brushing against the windows, the fridge clicking on. Every time the movie made a loud sound, I would flinch and look over my shoulder, expecting to see someone there. I turned off the TV and ran upstairs to my room. I went into the bathroom to brush my teeth, then played Call of Duty Zombies on my Xbox 360. I played for a few hours, losing track of time. Eventually, my team died and I got frustrated. I decided it was late and I should go to sleep. Not long after, I felt the vibration of the front door closing, and I assumed it was Zach coming back. I lay there listening to sounds of my brother moving around downstairs, which was odd because usually he'd go right upstairs to his room. There were weird sounds coming from downstairs for too long. Subtle footsteps, indescribable thumps and thuds. My stomach started churning. I got up and went to the window to look outside, expecting to see Zach's car in the driveway, but it wasn't there. That's when the real panic set in. I had no cell phone. I was only 12, so I had no way to contact my parents or Zach without leaving the bedroom and going to one of the house phones. I quietly tiptoed to my bedroom door to confirm it was locked, knowing the lock could be unlocked from the other side with just a fingernail. I looked around and decided the only safe place to hide was the small crawl-in closet built into the wall of my room. I squeezed inside, shut the door carefully, and tried to calm myself as I listened. I hoped I was just being paranoid and it actually was Zach. Maybe he parked on the side of the house. Seconds later, I heard someone fumbling with the door. Then the door opened. The person was inside my room. I stayed completely still, listening to footsteps moving around, feeling the floorboards creak beneath their weight, hearing things being moved and shifted. Every second felt like an eternity. I was terrified the closet door could open at any second and I could be dead. I stayed quiet, barely breathing. I could hear them dragging something across the floor. Eventually, I heard footsteps receding. I stayed in the closet for what seemed like forever, likely 2 hours, until finally, I heard Zach calling my name from across the house. His voice sounded urgent and pissed off. He came into my room and called my name again. I stepped out, and the first thing he did was yell at me, asking what I was doing in there and what I had done to his room. It was this moment that confirmed it was in fact not my brother who was in the house. I explained the situation as quickly as I could, still shaking. Once he understood, we started looking around the house together. That's when we realized how bad it really was. Drawers had been pulled out, electronics were missing, including TVs and gaming consoles. Someone had been through the house and taken things that were valuable. Zach immediately called the police. The police came and made a report, writing down everything that was missing. Around 4 a.m., our parents arrived. My dad was furious and went straight for Zach, smacking him square in the face, not only for leaving me alone, but for leaving the front door unlocked. My mom gave me a hug and told me she was just glad I was safe. Zach was forced to pay monthly rent from that point on to slowly pay back for everything stolen. I was just shaken up, terrified. The whole experience stuck with me for years. Every time I thought about it, I could feel the fear all over again, remembering hiding in that closet and hearing someone walking around my room, not knowing if I would make it out alive. When I was just a child, not even in kindergarten, I lived with my grandparents. My mom and dad had just separated, and my dad worked in the next town over. My uncle also lived with us. I was always told to never answer the door for strangers. We had a neighbor who visited often to watch hockey, wrestling, or join family barbecues. I'll call him David. He was friendly with both my grandpa and my uncle. One night, I was briefly left home alone. My grandma was at bingo. My grandpa told me he was going to get her and asked if I wanted to come. I refused because I was watching cartoons. He reminded me not to open the door for strangers. Then he left. Only a few minutes later, someone knocked at the door. I ran up and asked who it was. I heard David's familiar voice. I told him my grandparents weren't home, and he replied that he had just seen my grandpa leaving. I told him my uncle wasn't home either, and he said he knew he was out drinking. Then he asked to come in. I told him I wasn't allowed to open the door for strangers, and he insisted he wasn't a stranger since he was our neighbor. In my child mind, he was right. I unlocked the door and opened it. David towered over me. He was obviously drunk, swaying, slurring, squinting with one eye. He stepped inside and put his hands on my shoulders as I backed up. I didn't feel alarmed yet because I had seen my uncle drunk many times. I told him he could wait in the kitchen, but he would not let go of my shoulders. His voice changed, filled with anger, and he said things that frightened me. He dragged me into the kitchen and grabbed a large knife. He pressed the tip against my belly and asked if I wanted to be stabbed. When I cried, he told me to quiet down or he would cut my tongue or my throat. He dragged the dull side of the blade across my throat to show he was serious. Then I heard my grandparents' truck pulling in. Relief flooded me, and I was about to scream for help, but David clamped his hand over my mouth. He turned us both toward the doorway just as my grandma entered. Her smile vanished when she saw him holding me with a knife. She screamed for my grandpa to get inside immediately. My grandpa rushed in, yelling in shock and fury. He took one look at David holding me hostage and charged forward, shouting with pure rage. David shoved me to the floor. My grandma rushed over and grabbed me tightly, blocking me from seeing what was happening. I could still hear the struggle. Eventually, my grandpa overpowered him. When I finally looked up, my grandpa was shoving David out the door, yelling at him to never come back. Years later, after my grandpa's funeral, when I was sitting with my grandma discussing memories, I brought up that night and how heroic Grandpa had been. She looked uneasy. She asked if I remembered that my grandpa went out hunting that same night. I faintly remembered him leaving, even though hunting at night wasn't something he usually did. When I asked why he left, she claimed she didn't remember much. It got me thinking. They never called the cops, and I never saw David again after that night. My grandpa was respected in the community, friends with police officers, and known to be a good hunter. No one would ever question if they saw a bloody tarp in the back of his truck driving out of town late at night. This story happened during spring break in 2020 when I was 15. I was home alone one night while my parents were out of town. I got a call from a mutual friend from school who I'll refer to as Mason. Before I could speak, he asked what I was doing. He then asked if he could drop off one of my buddies because he needed a place to stay. This buddy is someone I've known since 3rd grade, who I'll refer to as Neil. I told him I didn't feel like having company over. Mason practically begged me to let Neil stay. I could sense desperation in his voice. Then Mason told me he'd let me use his weed pen if I let him drop off Neil. I caved. Looking back, I realize how dumb I was. Neil has always been very outgoing with zero filter. When I heard from my brother and friends the week prior that he had started acting really weird in his classes, I didn't think much of it. My brother told me Neil would start laughing or clapping out of nowhere in silent classrooms and would say strange things like claiming the basketball coaches were Freemasons trying to convert him.
It wasn't until he and Mason arrived at my house that I understood how bad it really was. I met them at my front door. I hit Mason's weed pen and gave it back. As Mason was about to leave, he grabbed Neil by the shoulders, tears forming in his eyes, and pleaded with him not to do that thing. Neil looked at him blankly and casually responded that he understood. I should have asked what was going on, but I didn't. After I closed the front door, the first thing Neil asked was whether all the doors in the house were locked. Red flags immediately went off in my head. I told him they were locked and asked why. He asked me to check, so I led him down the hallway to show that the back and laundry room doors were both locked. We stood in silence. Then, out of nowhere, his hand shot up and he put on this eerie, toothy smile that I can still see clearly in my mind. He held it for a few seconds before lowering his arm without saying a word. I forced a fake chuckle.
Then, Neil asked for some water, so we went to the kitchen. As I grabbed bottles from the fridge, I noticed him lingering by the drawer with silverware. I watched as he slowly opened the drawer and reached for a steak knife. Without thinking, I ran over, grabbed his hand before he could take it, and slammed the drawer shut. Neil didn't react. He just stared at me and let out a chuckle like he was pretending it was a joke. At that moment, I could feel my heart pounding in my ears, and I was frozen in fear. I had never felt like my life was in danger until that moment. He broke the silence by suggesting we go to the park. I agreed as if nothing happened. We walked to the laundry room, and I intentionally let him out first. I told him I needed to put shoes on. He paused and looked disappointed, telling me to hurry up. I shut the door, locked it immediately, and called my brother to explain what had just happened. I grabbed every knife in the kitchen and brought them upstairs to my room. My brother arrived with 3 friends in less than 5 minutes. I stayed inside, nervous, then went out. My brother and friends were talking to Neil, who was rambling about the school's basketball coaches being in the Illuminati. We decided to get him home. One of my friends eventually took Neil home, even though he insisted he couldn't go because he believed his dad was going to kill him. After all of this, I called Mason to ask what Neil had said to him. Mason explained that during the car ride, Neil had been reading a manifesto claiming he needed to kill himself or someone else to prevent his dad from trying to kill him. Mason had panicked and just wanted to get rid of Neil. After hearing this, I lost my mind and asked Mason why he would just dump Neil at my house without warning me. Later, it was revealed that Neil had taken drugs he shouldn't have, which triggered schizophrenic episodes and caused him to hear voices. About a month later, I told my mom the story, and she was not thrilled. Needless to say, I avoided something truly horrific that night by being on edge when Neil entered the house. I was 10 years old when this happened. My mom had gone grocery shopping and asked if I wanted to come. I made a big stink about not wanting to. It was a warm, sunny afternoon, and I just wanted to stay home and shoot hoops in the street. She finally gave in and let me stay. As soon as she pulled out of the driveway, I grabbed the basketball from the garage and started shooting around. I shot around for a while, pretending I was down by 1 with a buzzer shot. I was sweating from running back and forth, and at one point I stopped to catch my breath. That's when I looked up toward the house. At the upstairs window, someone was staring down at me. It was only a shadow behind the glass at first. I stared for a second or two before the shape shifted slightly, and I realized it wasn't some trick from the sun. Someone was up there, looking out at the street. None of my family was supposed to be home. My sister was at college, my dad was at work, my mom was across town. I dropped the basketball. The window was my sister's room. The blinds were half open, and the figure was right behind them. I didn't know what else to do except run inside. I ran around the side of the house and through the backyard gate. I burst inside and slammed it shut behind me. I yelled up the stairs asking who was home. My voice cracked. For a second, I didn't hear anything. Then a voice answered from upstairs. It said, "Rad, come upstairs." It wasn't my mom, my sister, or my dad. It was deeper than any of their voices, but not deep like a grown man trying to sound scary. It sounded like someone trying to sound normal. I didn't go anywhere near the stairs. I ran straight through the house, grabbed the house phone off the kitchen counter, and sprinted back outside. I called my mom and told her someone was in the house, and she didn't believe me at first. She told me that's not something to joke about. I started basically crying into the phone, telling her I wasn't joking, telling her I heard someone call my name from inside. She finally believed me when I started sobbing. She said she was leaving the store right now. After she hung up, she must have called the police because a cop car pulled up at the same time my mom's car turned into the driveway. She ran to me asking where I saw the person. I pointed to the upstairs window. The police went in first. My mom followed after a minute or two. I waited out front. For 10 minutes, I just stood there staring at the upstairs window. Eventually, one of the officers came out and told me it was safe. I went in and pointed upstairs to the room where I saw the man. They checked the closets, under the bed, behind the dresser, even the attic. They checked every room. They didn't find anyone. After the police left, my mom started acting doubtful. She said she believed me, but I could tell she didn't fully. She said if she found out I was messing around, I'd be punished. I kept telling her I wasn't lying. That night, I had trouble falling asleep. I kept thinking about the voice in that shadow, but eventually I got tired enough to drift off. I don't know what time it was when I woke up. It was still dark out, and at first I thought I woke up from a bad dream, but then I heard something in my room just loud enough to wake me. I sat upright in my bed. My eyes were still adjusting, but I could see the outlines of my room. I could see my dresser, my closet door cracked open, and across the room, not far from my bed, I saw something else. An unfamiliar shape. A tall, dark shape standing completely still. For a second, I thought I was imagining it, but then the slightest movement made me realize what it was. It was a person, a full-grown person standing in my bedroom. I didn't even have time to breathe. I just screamed, a loud, broken scream. As soon as I screamed, the figure moved fast. It darted across my room, grabbed my window, slid it open, and jumped out. I heard the man's feet land on the small awning below. My parents burst into the room. My dad ran straight to the window and looked out. Then he ran downstairs and out the back door to try to find whoever it was. He came back a few minutes later, out of breath, shaking his head. They called the police again, but that time it was mostly just to file another incident report. We don't know how long he was in the house. All I know is he was inside during the day long enough to know my name, and he was watching me from my sister's window, and he stayed in the house until nightfall. That, or he snuck in and out through my bedroom window by climbing up on that awning. Either way, he was in my room while I slept, standing there in the dark. Who knows what else he did while he was in the house? That's the scariest part.
These 4 stories prove that sometimes the scariest things happen when we're home alone. Whether it's a burglar, a dangerous neighbor, a friend having a mental breakdown, or a complete stranger watching you from inside your own house, the fear is real. If you enjoyed these stories, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell. Drop a comment below and tell me, have you ever had a scary experience while home alone? Stay safe out there, and maybe think twice before staying home by yourself.